Hey everyone, welcome back to YouTube. Jamming out today on high performers and average. This is a big one for me because I've been on both sides of the spectrum. You know, if you guys listened to my episode a couple weeks ago, I talked about how average is one of those things that I found myself in, even in different areas of my life. I found that I wanted to be the king of average by constantly sitting in mediocrity because it was easy. You know, there's a little bit of discomfort because there's certain things you can't do, but it's the thing that most people on average just can't do because it's just average, right? And so like so many people live in that realm. But I've also been on the side of elite, and I've been on the side of a high performer. You know, I was a phenomenal soccer player growing up, and then also, you know, was obviously in special operations at a high level of the military, you know, the top 1% of the military. So I've seen both ends of the spectrum, and there are key differences to both, but it's very simple. You know, it's not actually super intricate. And you guys, when I say all of this stuff and this episode fully divulges itself, like, you guys are gonna be like, well, no shit, Johnny, I get it. But at the end of the day, even if you get it and you understand what I'm saying, majority of you guys listening right now are probably living that average life, and that's not a knock on you. It's just because of the fact that, like, you may know what I'm saying, or you may understand what I'm saying, but you're not implementing the change that's going to elevate you from an average life to greatness, right? And that's where we want to be. We want to be greatness. Greatness is reflected in our legacy, and our legacy is what we pass on to the people that we love when we're no longer around. Now, whether that legacy is a gift of who you are and your personality, whether that legacy is material things and monetary things, like, you know, that's what we're giving off, that piece of ourselves, the thing that we lived our lives for. And in that legacy, we are going to either be looked at as average or as high performers. And at the end of the day, most men out there want to fucking be high performers. They want to live a life that's way above mediocrity, but yet they've convinced themselves so much that mediocrity is where they need to be, because of the fact that they are comfortable there. They're very comfortable in being average because average is easy. And so you guys have heard me talk about this, and I'm not going to go dive into that. Go back and listen to my episode a couple weeks ago if you want me to hear really dive into the king of average. But here we want to really identify the difference between high performers and an average person. There is a mindset difference, and the first thing is, the mindset of the average is looking up at other people in life, and whether they are a high level E-suite, um, white collar businessman or woman, whether they are a celebrity, whether they accrue a lot of funds from whatever job that they do, entrepreneurship, hedge funds, real estate, whatever it is, whether they live a great life, in the sense of like they are a great family person, or they're just the nicest person in the world, or they're a great athlete, or they're a great, you know, fill in the blank. It could be a million different things. When you're looking up at somebody, most people that are in the mindset and um, state of average, they want to look up at people and say there was something that was gifted to them. You know, this is the common thing that I run across. I made this excuse up for so many years around people I saw in places I wanted to be. I'd be like, oh, they're there because maybe their family had money, or maybe the fact that they didn't have to go to war, so they got to really hone in a craft in hedge funds and money market accounts and everything else, and stocks, and like that they got to really learn that game. So now at 30, you know, 6, they're way ahead of me in that game because I was off fighting a war, and then I was off doing protection, and like, okay, so I made up these excuses, guys. I'm just giving you guys the ideas here. I've made up the excuses on why I see people in different positions and where I want to be, whether it's financially, whether it's relationally, whether it's interpersonally, whatever it is. You know, I see them and then I make up an excuse, or I used to make up an excuse, and still it comes up. I'll find myself, that little fucking voice will come up and I'll make that excuse, and then I'll catch that motherfucker. And I'm like, no. There's no excuse for them. They put in the time, they put in the work, and they had a mindset that said that they could be great, right? And they just constantly did it until they were great. And I don't like the term fake it till you make it. That's not true. I think that when you're that quote of faking it means that you're actually practicing it. So practicing it until you become proficient in it. I like to say that a lot better than fake it till you make it. Practice to proficiency. And that's what most of these people did. They practiced and practiced and practiced until proficiency came along, and then greatness followed, right? So they became good at it, they became consistent at it, and then they became great at it. And that is the path that I want us all to see. But the mindset you have to have is very different from average. The average mindset is to make the excuse of why somebody is there, and then to make the excuse on top of that on why you are not there or why you cannot be there. So whether you want to say you're too old, whether you want to say that you have to do your 9 to 5 and that's taking all the hours of your day so you can't reach success that you want to reach, whether that's saying you want to be a better father, but you don't have the time because you're putting food on the table, whatever excuse you want to put in there. Every guy makes an excuse for this. And in all of that, when we make that excuse for ourselves, we also we paint the other person as having an excuse of why they're being there, why they got to that level of high performance or that level of eliteness, right? That's what happens. That's the negotiation we all come across. So the first thing is identifying that is the average mindset. Okay. Now I'm going to shift for a second on what the elite mindset looks like. The elite mindset sees somebody that they either want to be in that position or they want to get to that level of greatness, or they see somebody that just lives a lifestyle they want to live. And what do they do? What do you think they do when they see this? Do you think they make the excuse of why that person is there and why they can't get there? No. They see that person and they say, that person is actually no better than me. Not only do they know better than me, I could be better than them if I just stick with whatever it is that they're doing long enough that I learn it. That's the conversation somebody in a high performance mindset or a leadership or a elite mindset has. They don't see that person as having something they can't have. They see that person as having something they want and that they can attain it no matter what. And that is the biggest difference, because there's no form of impossibility for somebody who is a high performer or elite. There is no level of impossibility. There's only levels of achievement, and they can always reach those levels of achievement so long as they apply themselves. And when you have that mentality, it's not cockiness. It really isn't. It's not like you're going and bragging and saying, I'm going to be better than you. You silently go and do the things that are going to make you better than that person. And you just do them every day, day in and day out, until you get to that point of elite level of that high performer. And it will happen. If you are fucking consistent, it will happen. There is nothing that is gifted to somebody who is elite that isn't gifted to somebody who is average. There are people who in athletics have like some form of natural athleticism, but we've seen those guys not make it to the pros. And we've also seen guys that have just worked their fucking asses off get to the elite level. So you can't give the argument that there's other people that were just handed that, because people that were handed that gift of like athleticism to get somewhere, guess what? A lot of them fucking failed because they didn't have the work ethic behind the gift. And the people who weren't given the gift of that elite athleticism, but they had decent athleticism, right? Because they fucking worked at it, then they worked themselves to be elite. That is the difference, guys. You may know this. You may have heard this a million times. You may listen to somebody's podcast or have read somebody's book who said this. But at the end of the day, if you haven't listened and you're still living that lifestyle of average and you're asking yourself not asking yourself, you're giving yourself the excuse on why you're not somewhere and why somebody else is somewhere you want to be. If you're still doing all of that, then obviously the lesson has not resonated with you. I say this all because the fact that I have constantly been in flux between those two areas of mindsets in different places in my life. And when you learn to apply the elite and high performer mindset into the places that you're average, you can excel in any place that you want to. There's nothing holding you back, and you can achieve any level that you want to. There's nothing holding you back except you, and then the 6 to 8 inches between your ears, bro. That's it, right? And if you can just come to that conversation with yourself when you see somebody that says, well, if they did it, why can't I? If that becomes the question you start asking, you're going to start reaching new heights of success. Just ask yourself that question. I used to look at guys, I had, obviously, when I was going through special operations, went to Ranger School. And when I was, obviously, like, there's a big difference between going to Ranger School and getting your tab and being a real Army Ranger in special operations. I was a real Army Ranger, for those of you guys who don't fucking know. And we were required, if we wanted to succeed in going up in rank as an enlisted soldier, you had to go to Ranger School, and then you had to pass it, right? Or else you got kicked out of Ranger Battalion. That's what happened. They just kicked you out. That was one of our prerequisites to become a non-commissioned officer. Okay. So I had to go to Ranger School. Now there were guys in, especially in my platoon, who I was way fucking, like, I just knew I could beat them in anything. I was just there. It didn't fucking matter. I could just do anything better than them. And they passed Ranger School. And so when I was there and shit was really hard and you were just like fucking in it, just in it, I would I would think about them. Honestly, I did this, and it was a few of them. I thought about them and I was like, if that motherfucker did this, there's no way I'm not doing it. There's no way I can't do it if that motherfucker did this. And I can promise you, if you look at everything in your life that way, there is somebody who has reached heights of success, heights of high performance and eliteness that you wish you could have. That you see that person, you're like, fuck that person, like, not in a bad way, but if they could fucking do it, I can do it, right? That is powerful. It's not being, you ain't going to the person and saying that to their face. You're just telling that to yourself internally. And it's not because you don't respect them. It's just because you know that you have what it is that can get there, and you know that you're better than, you might be better than that person in different areas of life. And if you just applied your success in those areas to the area that you're comparing yourself to them, you can reach the same level of success, if not more. But if you don't start saying that thing to yourself, you're going to constantly live in the excuse of why you're not there and why you're average and why that person was gifted that position of being a high performer or elite level person. You're always going to make those concessions, and you're never going to allow yourself to see that you could be exactly in that place, whether it takes you a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, but you could be exactly in that place if you just gave yourself the chance. And by I mean giving yourself the chance is giving yourself the mindset that you know you can be successful. So all of this to say, there is a very vast difference in the mindset of a high performer and an average person. There's not a very vast difference in the capabilities of those two people. You have to remember that. It is not the capabilities, it is the mindset. I promise you. So start to check your mind. Start to ask yourself how you can be better, in the sense of challenging yourself to say, what is it that I can do, that I can achieve greatness in, and how can I be better than that person? Not asking for excuses, just asking yourself what it's going to take to do that, and then allowing yourself to see somebody and be like, I know I can do better than them if I just give myself the opportunity. There are people who have risen to high levels of success. People have risen to high levels of different areas within life that you probably are highly more capable than, but you got to give your mindset the right primer. And this is it. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you all next week.